Hi YouTube, it's Kathy and welcome to another collab. I'm here in the same sweater I've been filming in quite constantly because I wear it a lot. We're really spoiled with our weather on the west coast of Canada, so even though like a lot of the rest of the country still has snow, it's like 6 degrees outside and I'm still wearing a sweater because I'm a precious little child. Although now that I think of it, there is a tenuous connection between this sweater and the topic of this video because Dark Age Creations is my friend's armory and they actually do sword fighting lessons and they actually rent out and sell many things for stage productions, so it works. It also makes me feel like a badass, like I'm doing some training sequences, some stage combat. Oh my goodness, I miss theater. Anyway, this is a collaboration between myself and whoever wanted to be involved in it, where we're going to talk about books that center theater. I really love theater and I really love books, and I really love books about both of those things. So I recently read a book that I really enjoyed and I went, hey, I bet there's tons of other books that either I just can't think of right now or I should read, so I got some recommendations for you. All of the books that my collaborators have recommended I've either read before, or I've requested them for my library, or I've put them on my wish list. And then I'll also jump in with a few of my recommendations as well. I've decided to put this video together alphabetically. That's how the clips were lined up in my folder, so why not? It seems great. That means that I'll be somewhere in the middle of the mix. With that long ramble out of the way, let's get to the recommendations.
Hey, my name is Beck, and my channel is Mooney Reads by Starlight. Now, I've never done theater, but I have pretty much always liked musicals. I grew up with a mom who loved Phantom of the Opera. I bonded with one of my best friends in high school over Jesus Christ Superstar, and throughout my life I've found a lot more musicals that I love and that mean a lot to me. However, it's not the only type of theater that I'm interested in. It's just the one that I know most about. I've actually wanted to get a little bit more into reading plays. I've read plenty for school as somebody who got an English degree, but I've been looking to find some that are kind of in my specific interests, including a lot of LGBT plays. So the recommendation that I have is kind of in that wheelhouse. I have Queering the Stage through Plays and Monologues, a roadmap to GLBT Histories and Heroes by Jack Mia Shamblin. Like the title would suggest, it does go through different periods of gay history, but also the art itself is a form of activism that situates itself in gay history. So it's kind of got that on both levels, which is really interesting because this isn't just the plays and monologues. It situates itself and why the artist is making the art in the first chapter. So it talks about things like LGBT suicide rates and acceptance and things like that. And then before each play, it also gives the backdrop for why they wrote the play that they did, what they got inspiration from, and then where and how they performed it. This includes some people who would have been playing, the venues that they were doing it at. And some of that went a little bit over my head because I'm not familiar with the venues of the people, but it was still really interesting. And the fact that this kind of was itself a form of activism was super interesting. And the choices that they make in their art. They kind of blend the erotic and pain and humor in certain ways, kind of queering those lines, if you will. And it's really fascinating. I really loved a lot of pieces in this book. I definitely would go in with some kind of content warnings in mind. Like I said, the erotic plays a role in this, so there's kind of explicit content. There's also mentions of like hate crimes. They talk about the HIV and AIDS epidemic, so that's pretty sad. And there's also some sexual assault as well in here. But overall, this is just a really interesting book. The way that they put some of the things together is kind of an interesting way of looking at history and looking at different people's perspectives. And if you really like plays and theater, there's a lot of background to really dig into. So that is Queering the Stage.
Hello everybody, it's Carrie from Wild's Book Garden, and thank you so much, Kathy, for asking me to be a part of this collaboration. My personal favorite kind of theater, or where my heart really is live theater. Something that I really am passionate about is classical works, and you know, especially Shakespeare. That's going to be very important when I talk about the book that I'm recommending. I think that there's something so special about stories that are hundreds of years old that can come alive again because people are still performing them, and the way that these stories can still resonate so clearly with us. I'm not saying that it is better than modern theater. There are a lot of modern theater works that I absolutely love and I'm very, very passionate about. I just wanted to highlight classical theater because that aspect of it's a story that is so old and that still feels very immediate. That is something that I think is really cool. So the book that I'm recommending today is An Assassin's Guide to Love and Treason by Virginia Baker. In this historical fiction novel, we follow two main characters. One of them is a young woman named Camryn, and this is at the time in English history where the tension and violence between Catholics and Protestants was at its height. And Camryn's father was actually killed during a raid on their house, which was executed because he is a Catholic. And so because of this, Camryn decides that she wants to get revenge against the Queen, who ordered this. In order to do that, she has to dress up as a boy and audition for a play that is going to be performed in front of the Queen. She's going to get close enough to the Queen to help like overthrow her or attack her. And of course at this time all of the parts were played by men, which is why she has to dress up as a boy. And then our other main character is Toby, and he is essentially a spy on the Queen's side, and he ends up being a part of this play as well, and that's how the two of them meet. And this play is actually Twelfth Night by William Shakespeare. Toby and Camryn, who's going by Kit now, they end up spending a lot of time together, and they both kind of use this as an opportunity to try and get what they want. And then things start getting complicated because of course they're rehearsing together, they're spending a lot of time together, and they start developing feelings for each other. And I just think this book is so underrated and so great. And I think that the setting and writing both have this perfect balance of, if you are somebody who reads a lot of historical fiction or who enjoys historical fiction like I do, I think you're going to be really happy with it because I think it's a well done historical fiction novel. But if you're somebody who doesn't read that genre a lot, I think it's a very approachable historical fiction book. It's really in that sweet spot. I also think the characters and the romance are really well developed. Toby is also bisexual, and I think the way that that was examined in the time period and kind of talked about in the time period, I think that was done really thoughtfully and with a lot of care. And I think this book did a great job of showing how there have been gay people throughout history, and just because they couldn't be open about it or they didn't have the same vocabulary that people today have, it doesn't mean that they didn't exist or that they were less queer. And finally, the theater elements, which is the whole point of this recommendations video. It was just so much fun getting to see Shakespeare as a character, for one thing. Yes, there are some liberties taken because we don't know a lot about his personality, but I think it was such a fun element. I think this book really captured the excitement and the really hard work that goes into a production. So those are some of the reasons that I love An Assassin's Guide to Love and Treason. I think that it will please theater nerds, but it's also got a lot of great stuff for people who aren't so into theater, and I hope that you enjoy it if you pick it up.
Hi, I haven't done a video collab in a while. My name's Jenny, Magic Cat Jenny. I make videos about the musical Cats now. That's what I do on the internet. And of course, I'm going to be recommending how the Broadway production of Cats was born, A Cat's Diary. This book is very interesting. It's written by Stephen Moe Hanan, who was in the original production, the original Broadway production of Cats. Cats was in the West End, London, originally. And then when it was majorly successful, they moved it to Broadway, created a Broadway production. This guy played the original, Broadway original, Asparagus, which is Gus, the theater cat, Bustopher Jones, and Growl Tiger. It's interesting. It's written like a diary because it basically is his diary of how they made the musical, how they like took the London one, brought it to Broadway, how that process went, what it was like. There's an introduction in this book by Trevor Nunn, who's the director of Cats, who's director in London, and then I think it was his first show in America that he directed, and that's him on the back, the director, Trevor Nunn. And some cats. Yeah. So I don't know, if you're a seasoned Cats fan, you know this book, you read this book, but you might not if you're new to the fandom. And if you're not a Cats fan, you probably are thinking, really? But yes, really, it's very interesting. It's very short. It's a really quick read. But if you're interested in how a show comes across the seas, I mean, it's one actor's perspective of the process. But that's interesting. I find that interesting. And yeah, I don't know, Cats, gotta love it. Hopefully that's a good recommendation. I haven't read it in years, actually. Maybe I'll reread it. It's very quick. You read it in a night, you know. Bye.
Hello everybody, my name is Karen and you can find me at the booktube channel The Audiobook Aficionado, or on Twitter at MarinK. And I wanted to join this collab because I am a huge musical theater fan. I've grown up doing theater. I went to a performing arts high school. I was a theater major there. I've done a lot of plays, actually, mostly is my own performance history, but like my true love is musicals. I am truly deeply obsessed with musicals, and honestly more so than performing. I really love being a patron of the arts, and I love seeing musicals and going to musical performances, as evidenced by this t-shirt that I'm wearing with every Broadway theater on it, or my next to normal tattoo, or perhaps this drawer full of all of the playbills of all the shows I've ever seen. Literally the list goes on and on and on. I love musicals. For a theater book recommendation, the first thing that came to mind for me was this book right here. It's called How I Paid for College, a novel of sex, theft, friendship, and musical theater by Marc Acito. Our main character wants to go to acting school. He wants to be a theater major in college, but his father refuses to pay for that. So this is basically about him and his friends doing wildly ridiculous things to try to earn the money for him to go to theater school. This takes place in New Jersey in the 80s, and they like to go on day trips up to the city to go see a Broadway show. The characters in this book are actually in a performance of Grease at their school. So this book really has everything. It has, you know, characters that are passionate about theater, it has characters who go and see theater, and then it also has characters who are performing in theater. It really just ties the whole story together. It's a very like goofy, lighthearted, fun, just romp of a book. I also thought this would be a great recommendation for people who are watching on Kathy's channel. There is so much queer representation in this book. It's really, really great. This is actually reminding me that I'm very much due for a reread of this book, and I actually have never gotten to the sequel, but I'm assuming it also is going to be very theater heavy because it's called Attack of the Theater People by Marc Acito. So this is the sequel I have to look forward to, but yeah, How I Paid for College by Marc Acito, really, really fantastic for fans of theater like me. I think that you will enjoy it.
Hi, it's me again. The book that started it all for me for this recommendations video was Roman and Jewel by Dana L. Davis. I read this quite recently. I read it as an audiobook and I really enjoyed it. It's about this character who's at her last audition for this show that's going to be a retelling of Romeo and Juliet, but set to music and set in the present day. So think about Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet, but set to music, like a rock opera. Basically, this was pitched to me as Romeo and Juliet gets the Hamilton treatment, and that's a very good way to get me to read a book. The wonderful thing about this book is not only is the play that they're working on Romeo and Juliet, this itself is a retelling of Romeo and Juliet, so I just thoroughly enjoyed those layers. I really enjoyed the behind the scenes because I used to be a theater kid, so I remember being backstage and watching rehearsals and being in rehearsals and all of the things that go into productions, and for me this really put it together really well. A couple of other books I wanted to recommend. One is Full Disclosure. This one has a little bit of a theater element in that the main character is directing a production of Rent, and that ties heavily into the plot of this book because that play has to do with HIV and AIDS, and our main character is positive. For a little bit of lighthearted fun, I also wanted to throw out there Don't Cosplay With My Heart, which is about cosplay, which I also think is a type of theater. This is a little bit younger of a YA, but I still enjoyed it because it still had that behind the scenes making the costumes element to it. We also have Station 11, which takes place after a society-ending event, and there are these people going around to the different little encampments in their section of Canada performing Shakespeare. We also have Tipping the Velvet by Sarah Waters, which is historical fiction about this girl who also likes girls when she comes to realize that, but there's also this element of them dressing up as men in performances and that whole nightclub type of feel, and I really enjoyed that. Kathy from editing here. Nightclubs made me think of The Boy in the Red Dress, which also has a theater element. This is a historical fiction that starts out in the 20s and makes its way into the 1930s in New Orleans, and it's a murder mystery, and it's got drag, and it's wonderful. The theater element isn't huge, but a lot of it takes place in an underground nightclub, speakeasy, theater type of setting, so I really enjoyed that. And then of course I could not make this list without mentioning Boy Queen, which is the drag YA book of your dreams. Robin is a triple threat but finds out he didn't get into any of the schools he wants to go to. He ends up going to a drag night on his 18th birthday, falls in love with the medium, and wants to become a drag queen. I'm going to let the rest of my collaborators have a turn now, but obviously if you have any recommendations, let us know about them in the comments.
Hi, I'm Kat from Stars and Embers. My favourite theatre type is musical. I have been obsessed with musicals for as long as I can remember. I was in all of my High School Musical productions. I can't sing though, so no solos for me, but I adore watching and attending musicals. My favourite is Sygh the Musicals, which if you don't know, it's about the 6 wives of Henry VIII and they form a pop group. It's fantastic. But funnily enough, the book I am about to recommend you does not feature a musical. It is just a play. I read this last year and immediately loved it and gave it 5 stars, and that is The Curse of the King by Winnie Lyon. So the basic premise of the story is that our main character is descendant from the witches who cursed Macbeth, and then coincidentally her school is putting on a performance of Macbeth and she is required to participate. But you know, she's like, oh my god, there is a curse on this and I can't let anyone at my school get hurt. So she decides to try and break the curse. And in trying to do so, she accidentally brings back one of the original witches instead. It's full of pop culture references and there's a lot of focus on friendship and some romance happening. Ooh, and romance. Our main character has a crush on her best friend, but her best friend is interested in this guy that's also participating in the play. It's a lot of fun. I found myself laughing a lot. You get all of the theatre kid nostalgia, and then you also have this other layer of like all of the witchy stuff and, you know, seeing what life was like back for the Macbeth witches as well.
Hi friends, my name is Katrina Ames and I named my YouTube channel after myself under the mistaken belief that it would make me easy to find. Growing up, I did a lot of musicals, and I still say the only thing stopping me from getting a lead role is the fact that I cannot sing. And as much as I loved acting in my many ensemble roles, I also did the lights, sound, sets, wardrobe, and stage crew throughout the years on various productions. I want to honor the work that often goes unnoticed in performances by recommending The Backstagers by James Tynion IV, Rian, Sygh, and Walter Baiamonte. This comic takes place in the theater program of an all-boys private school. Theater is all about making magic, and the real magic happens backstage. Literally, there is a secret, dangerous underground world backstage that needs to be kept a secret from the outside world, and most importantly, away from the actors. Jory transfers to this new school and joins the backstage crew, gaining a group of queer friends, mystery, and adventure as they all work together to save the world, and maybe more importantly, the show. The whole series is only 3 volumes, and they're such fun reads. I can't wait to see what everyone else recommends for this prompt, and I'm gonna go start reading something else.
Hi, I'm Kelsey. My channel is called The Fancy Hat Lady Reads. I'm wearing one of my fancy booktube hats. And while you may not know it from my channel where I mostly talk about fantasy and science fiction books, I do have a theater degree. It is the field in which I have vocational training. And the book I'd like to recommend today is a nostalgic favorite for me. It is Wyrd Sisters by Terry Pratchett, which is part of the sprawling Discworld comedic fantasy series. This story follows a trio of witches, and it mashes together elements from both Hamlet and the Scottish play in surprising and delightful ways. This is where I personally started reading the adult Discworld novels after having read the books for younger readers when I was in middle school and high school, and I do think it is a solid choice if you're looking for an on-ramp to the series. This sub-series of Discworld is the Witches series, and each of them takes on a different topic from fantasy literature. This one is obviously Shakespeare magic, Witches Abroad does fairy tales, Lords and Ladies does fae fantasy, Masquerade returns to the performing arts with Phantom of the Opera, and then Carpe Jugulum does vampires. Some lists you'll find will list Equal Rights as the first book in the Witches series because it's the first book to feature Granny Weatherwax, but other than that, Equal Rights doesn't connect to the rest of the books in this sub-series, and you don't need to read it before you read Wyrd Sisters. Other than Equal Rights, though, I do strongly recommend reading the rest of the Witches books in order. Anyhow, that's my recommendation for today. I hope you're having a good one. Bye for now.
It don't take much to be a dreamer. All you do is close your eyes. But some made-up world is all you'll ever see. I was 8 years old when I saw Newsies for the first time, and I fell in love. I wanted to crawl into that made-up world and live as long as I could. My name is Michelle, and my favorite performance type is live musical theater. The book I chose today is called Goodbye Paris. It's by Anstey Harris, and I chose this book because it's about a cello player and what is musical theater without the orchestra. Goodbye Paris follows Grace, a violin shop owner, as she struggles with her fears to perform in front of others and her desire to be loved by a part-time man. And her two offbeat friends, a teenage girl and an old man, that stay close to her and help her through it all. This book has passion, longing, self-loathing, discovery, music, Paris, and wine. You saw on the front, these are wine stains all over her story. I love this book. I highly recommend it to pretty much anyone. I want to give it to my sister for her to read, but definitely pick it up. It was wonderful. Thank you.
Hi guys, I'm Shelley from Collie of the Wobbles, and I am a huge theatre fan. I think you could probably go as far as to say I'm a theatre nerd. Yes, and more specifically, musical theatre for me holds this power. I don't know how to describe it, but when you get the right kind of emotion that hits the right kind of note and the swell of the music, it has an emotional hit just about right here. It makes my chest hurt in a good fuzzy way. Is that a thing? I don't know, but I really appreciate musical theatre. So as a theatre book recommendation, I have gone with When the Curtain Falls by Carrie Hope Fletcher. Now, Carrie herself is a musical theatre actress, so she knows what she's talking about when she starts writing about theatre. Oh my god, the magic in this book. This is a book about theatre. It's a book about a specific play. It's a ghost story, and it is set in 2 timelines. All of the things at once. So our first timeline is 1952. There is a young actress who is going into a production called When the Curtain Falls. Her name is Fawn, and she starts a bit of a romance with the assistant doorman. There's some chemistry going on, they like each other. You have behind the stage cuteness as these 2 people start to have feelings for each other while this production's going on, so you get to learn about all the backstage stuff of 1952. And when the curtain falls on opening night, something rather tragic happens. Jump! 70 years later, the same theatre, the same production is about to be put on again. This time you have 2 actors, Olive and Oscar, who are circling each other as they are playing the leads in When the Curtain Falls. And all these spooky things are starting to happen inside the theatre, linking to the production 70 years ago. I love this book and I love this story because it is packed with behind the scenes theatre cuteness. Now when you go to the theatre, you see the play and it's beautiful and it's adorable and you love it, but I often feel like behind the scenes is another story altogether, and this book is chock full of it because Carrie Hope Fletcher obviously knows this because she's been in many plays and been on many tours, and so she knows all the kind of behind the scenes stuff, and it's ghosty. There's so many ghosty stuff going on that I love. It's got a kind of Phantom of the Opera feel about it, I think, because you have a young ingenue, you have a very overpowering man person who's trying to take over her life, and then later on in 70 years later you start talking about sexism and feminism and the tabloids and how life has changed. There is a bit of a trigger warning for abuse and the Me Too movement that just happened when this came out, and I think there's a lot of that in there. But I love all the behind the scenes of information. I love the strong women. I love there's just little nuggets and Easter eggs here and there throughout the book that just kind of make your heart sink. And so I highly recommend When the Curtain Falls by Carrie Hope Fletcher.
Hello, my name is Xander or R, and I am here to recommend you some theater books. I have a BA in theater, so I feel like I'm quite qualified to do so. The first book I'm going to be recommending is a little bit on the theater light side, but it does have theater in it, and that is Loveless by Alice Oseman. Loveless is mainly about an ARO ace girl coming to terms with being ARO ace, but her roommate in her first year of college loves Shakespeare and wants to start a Shakespeare society at their college. So there's a little bit of that, and it's very interesting and entertaining, and it's great. So yeah, not necessarily a theater book, but it does have theater elements in it, and I wanted to recommend it because I love this book. The next book I'm going to be recommending isn't out yet. It comes out in April, I believe, and it's Between Perfect and Real by Ray Stove. This book is about a trans guy who originally came out as a lesbian and is currently in a relationship with another girl, but he gets cast as Romeo in the school's production of Romeo and Juliet, and after like some deep thought and some like things that he does, like trans mask things that he does, like binding for example, he realizes that he's a trans guy and not a lesbian. So it's him like coming to terms with that himself, and it's also about him like coming out to his friends and like stuff like that, and his like girlfriend. It's really good, so I highly recommend you pre-order this if you haven't already. It's fantastic. The final book I'm going to recommend you is my favorite part of theater, and that's technical theater. I actually work in the scenic side of things. I want to build sets. The Backstagers is a comic about a group of techs that have this magical like door in their tech room that like gives them all of the tools that they need to build the set and the props and the sound and everything. It's just fantastic. Yeah, it's about like this new kid joining, and they're like showing him the ropes, and it's just wonderful. I love it so much. And it's only 2 volumes. The story is only 2 volumes. There's a 3rd volume, but it has like mini vignettes, I guess you would say. So anyway, it's only 2 volumes. I don't know what you're doing if you haven't read The Backstagers and you love theater, because we shouldn't overlook the technical side of theater, y'all. I certainly don't, because, you know, that's what I got my degree in and what I want to do for a living. But like, next time when the pandemic is over and you're going to a play or a musical, just, you know, admire the set maybe. Be like, oh wow, a lot of people put a lot of good time and effort into that set and it looks really good. Or be like, wow, these lights are amazing. Or like, ooh, that automation though. A lot of things go into theater that aren't acting, and I feel like they get overlooked. Anyway, next time you go to a theater, just appreciate the technical aspects. That's all I'm asking. And that concludes my recommendations video. Thanks, Kathy, for putting this together. I really love theater, and I don't talk about it enough, honestly. And these are just a few of my favorite theater books. So I hope you enjoyed them.
And there you have it. I hope those are some books to warm your theater-loving heart. I really love that we got a little bit of overlap. I love that there were things on this list that I've read before and things that I've never heard of before. What is your favorite book that involves theater? Let us know about it down in the comments below. On the way down to the comments, if you hit that subscribe button, that would be very nice of you. If you don't want to leave a comment, but you want to make sure that we know you were here, just leave an emoji or a smiley face if you're on your keyboard. Some people have asked if there's a way to financially support this channel, so I set up a Ko-fi account, which is a digital tipping service. The link for that is down below, as well as the link to my PayPal and my wish list in case you would like to buy me a theater book. You can like and share this as you see fit, and I will see you very soon. Bye!